I did not open a new tab. Stop it. Okay, you there? Okay, sorry, I was tweeting this out. Okay, so the topic that was selected for us for this new call-out tournament is Americans should stop using the term hero to describe those who enlist in the U.S. military. And I'm put in the agree column. And the reason I signed on to that is, and I remember reading this years ago, and I'm just going to read something real quick. An op-ed written by Mike Stajura, served in the U.S. military, the Army specifically, from 1995 to 2002. And I'm going to get through this as quick as I can, then I'll pass you the microphone. And I'm sorry I kept you waiting. I really screwed up about the time. That's all on me. On Memorial Day, when our thoughts will be with our fallen brothers and sisters, I ask you to reconsider excessive use of the word hero. Please don't perceive it as ingratitude. The word is just too intangible and inaccurate, and it has a different meaning to veterans and to the general public. Whether the title is deserved or not, most of us feel uncomfortable with it. Even America's newest living Medal of Honor winner, Army veteran Kyle White, this op-ed is from 2014, feels the same. I was just doing my job, he said in an NBC story. I am still uncomfortable with hearing my name and the word hero in the same sentence, he added in a CNN story. That is not false modesty. Other combat veterans I know feel the same as him. We all had jobs to do and orders to follow, and we did so to the best of our training and abilities. Like a very large portion of living American veterans, the airmen and I fulfilled our duty without hearing a single shot fired in anger. And like all veterans, we implicitly understand that we performed our roles in service of a larger mission. At least as important, we were also in service to each other. Heroism is not a goal for any service member, nor should it be. Point blank, heroism is for war movies. Professionals in this business know that when the American soldier must rely on heroism, it means that something has gone very wrong in the planning and execution of a mission. Soldiers train, plan, and fight in a way that takes heroism out of the equation. I was explicitly taught by my leaders and non-commissioned officers that a hero is the last thing you want to be. This was a cultural norm reinforced throughout training at different levels and extracurricular professional development. Hero has the connotation of a very explicit four-letter word in military culture. A hero is...
Okay, yeah, you only get 3 minutes. So I'll pass it back. Take 30 seconds more to finish. No, hold on. You have to... you get 3 minutes per turn. So take another 30 seconds and pass it back.
That's my... Sorry about that. And I could barely hear you there. Hold on, let me see if I can fix the volume on this end. Oh, that is much better. Okay. Sorry. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Hero has the connotation of a very explicit four-letter word in military culture. A hero is someone who recklessly endangers himself or his buddies. Want to go home? Then don't be a hero. Want to get out of that foxhole alive? Well, you'd better hope that you're not sharing it with a hero. Heroes draw fire. Heroes take unwarranted risks. A hero goes out of his way to act or appear heroic. Most who've worn a uniform want nothing to do with these people. Okay. Now, I don't dispute that there are certainly people who wear the uniform who are heroes, but the idea of just calling someone a hero because they put on the uniform is to just sort of make an assumption. And a lot of veterans don't want to be called heroes, and I certainly think we should listen to them when they tell us that kind of thing, because let's face it, they would know better than we do about that kind of situation. Okay, now I'm passing the microphone back.
Thank you. That was a great intro. And I do think that makes my point that why military members who enlist should be called heroes. And here's a definition I got off of Google for hero. Someone who behaves selflessly, excuse me, usually at considerable personal risk and sacrifice to comfort or empower others and make the world a better place. So keyword, selflessly. So when someone who is selfless, they don't want to be all howdy-tighty, like, I'm a hero, look at me. They're doing it not for the rewards or the glory. They're doing it to serve their fellow man. So, yeah, they're saying don't call us heroes. That's because they're being modest. They don't want to, do it for the fame. I saw a post on Facebook a few days ago. It says, instead of having the Oscars, let's have a show where we're honoring people in uniform, whether it's police, firemen, EMT, whether it's the military. And then someone commented, which made a lot of sense. Yeah, everyone would watch it, but no one would show up to participate in getting an award because they don't do it for the rewards. They don't do it for the awards or getting a cash payment. And people who go into the military, they fully expect to be treated like crap. They're not dumb. They know that the VA scandal where they're being mistreated when it comes to their health care, but they don't do it for themselves. They selflessly serve so that we can have a forum like Call Out and debate each other. And they do it so we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression, the right to bear arms, and all of our other innate rights. They protect them, and they do that selflessly without care whether they end up dying landing on a grenade or not. So that makes my point that they are selflessly serving, and we should call them heroes, even though they don't want to, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have an America, and we wouldn't have the freedom we have today.
Well, I think that's largely true. Certainly, most a sizable portion, if not a majority, of people who enlist do so for that. There are others. There are those who enlist because they're poor and it's the only option available to them. And you got a handful of people who really just want to play with the hardware. And a lot of those guys probably end up getting out as soon as possible and becoming mercenaries. So they want to play with the big guns, but they don't want to be saddled with that pesky code of ethics. But to your point about our the Constitution and all that, that's definitely what they're supposed to do. The deal is that they will risk their lives to defend this country. And in exchange, the civilian government promises to not send them into those kinds of life or death situations unless they absolutely have to. And this is no fault of the military. We have been failing them on that aspect a lot over the past, however exactly many years it's been since World War II ended. And very, very often. The problem with calling them heroes is that can sometimes lead to hero worship, which has more problems than I can really get into in a minute and a half. But one of them is definitely that, if a soldier comes back feeling not just like they weren't a hero, but also like they shouldn't have been sent where they were in the first place, which happens a lot, which is why you often see a lot of veterans show up in anti-war movements. You call them a hero, and it's like they know that you mean it as a compliment, but they're not going to feel it as a compliment, which is why I don't use the term hero to describe those who've enlisted. In general, someone who does the thing that you talked about, throwing themselves on a grenade to save their friends, that individual soldier, him or her, I would definitely call a hero. I'm just speaking more broadly with regards to the term. And I'm sorry if this is not coming across very well. I literally had to run across the street to get to this debate because I screwed up on the time.
Okay, no, it's perfectly fine. So here's a little anecdote about my father. My father was a Navy photographer back during the Cuban Missile Crisis in the Bay of Pigs. For those who don't know about the Cuban Missile Crisis, back in the 60s, Soviet Cuba had gotten Soviet rockets from the Soviet Russia. So when they were shipping the Soviet Russian rockets to Cuba, it was a big deal. It was nuclear warheads 70, 90 miles away from the coast of Miami. So my dad, as a Navy photographer, he was told, we have this super secret mission. You may not come back. So what my dad did was he wrote a letter to my grandmother, his mother, and, you know, I don't know what it said, but it was basically, I love you and such, that, you know, if I don't make it, my buddy's going to send it for me. And when he got on the destroyer ship, the warship, he had to climb a 40-foot mast to the top of the crow's nest with a camera strapped to his back. He was free climbing. He had no security system. He did have a security harness when he got to the top, but he did this so selflessly, and he volunteered to do that because he selflessly served his country. And he had no care. You know, of course you care about your life, but he selflessly put him up to the task that he may not come back, that Soviet Russians may very well start World War III out of the Cold War because they're taking pictures of these super secret missiles. And to wrap it all up on that, I'm 25 years old. My dad is 74. He didn't tell this to me until a few years ago when I said, what's a cool thing you did in the military? Oh, I took pictures of the Cuban missiles. I'm like, that's a huge thing that you never told me. And it's something he never seeked recognition for. And I would totally describe that as a hero, that he's selflessly serving his country, you know, with less care about his life and more care about the American people. And that's just one example of the type of hero mentality when it comes to military members. And I totally get that there are people who are just looking to kill someone, but most of the people that enlist, they're doing it to serve a better good than to do a lot of bad.
Yeah, I would say in that case that is definitely an example of what I was talking about. Individual acts as heroic. One concern that I have, and this applies also to police and less frequently to firefighters, although this has happened too, is that at a certain point, if the uniform itself becomes synonymous with heroism, you know, what do you do when someone wearing that uniform does something bad, or something like really awful? Like, a crooked firefighter might start fires so their friends have more work, which is a thing that has actually happened. A bad cop, shooting a kid and then blaming the kid for it, or, or war crimes in the case of, military officers who cross the line, or whose commanders in the field order them to cross the line. There's another debate that could be had, but I'm not going to get into that one here, obviously. Not enough time, and also not really the topic at hand. And then, of course, there will be people who will use the uniform as an excuse to deflect criticism. I mean, one of my own anecdotes is during Occupy Wall Street, there's this guy on Facebook who was saying things about the movement that was just flat not true. You could just go to any of these rallies and talk to people there and hear that and understand that's not true. Or you could even watch Daily Show reporting on it and see that was not true. And people, myself included, rightly called him out on it. And his response was to post a picture of himself in his army uniform and basically argue that we shouldn't be allowed to criticize him because he'd served in the military. And that is where that hero worship thing I mentioned earlier comes in. It can be a fine line, and it can be difficult, and good people can screw up. But as a general rule, that is why I'm reluctant to call anyone a hero who hasn't done a heroic act. To me, just putting on the uniform is not enough. And some people are very offended by that. Some people just seem to have this idea that if someone is in the military, I should show them all deference no matter what. And it's like, in a lot of cases, I am more than willing to do it. I would do it even if they would prefer to be more modest. But because there are those exist who don't deserve it, that is why I'm reluctant to use the term.
Well, I totally get that, the uniform is a very symbolic thing. And for example, in the Occupy Wall Street example, that's actually illegal to participate in political protest in uniform. So he was breaking the law and defacing the uniform for what it stands for. But you just don't get to put on a uniform. You have to go through intense, rigorous training in the form of boot camp, through weapons training, and then specialization training. So it's not just that. You also have to factor in that the camaraderie, that all these brothers in arms, brothers and sisters in arms, they're doing this to serve one another selflessly. For example, if there's a grenade on the ground, the closest person to it is going to get on that grenade to save his comrades, in America at least. So, there's a sense that, there's camaraderie and serving not only the American people, but each other. And it's a very heroic thing, I think, to selflessly go into a boot camp where you get torn a new one and you get torn down from such a high ego to the lowest of lows and then built up again by the military. That's a very selfless act in and of itself. And you're risking your own sanity and you're sacrificing, common goods, common commodities like warm running water all the time, being able to go onto your computer all the time. I have an Army Ranger as a friend. He's dealing with a 3G connection right now. Talk about 2008. And he's such a hero in my mind. I don't know any heroic act that he's done other than being in the military. And he just brings his own presence and aura of serving in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he doesn't do it for all the accolades and all the awards and all the fancy ribbons. He does it to serve people like me and you, to have this kind of debate. And there's a lot more profitable positions, like going into a mercenary. I would not call that kind of person a hero, because they're doing it for the money, not for the love of their country. So the hero, just not putting on a uniform, it's what it took to get to the uniform and what it stands for as such a symbolic and important role to protect people.
I definitely, in principle, I largely agree with what you're saying. It's just the only reason I don't go to the, just calling them heroes outright if I don't know what, if anything, they've done with the uniform, is that, it's like you said, symbols are very important. The concern that, and I'm far from the only person, smarter people than me have brought this up, and we've seen it happen in other countries and in other time periods. It's, it's when that line gets crossed, when the symbol itself starts to become more important than what the symbol is supposed to stand for. And that's, one of the concerns that I have, and also one of the reasons I don't broadly use the term hero. And actually, that's pretty much all I've got. Racking my brain, and so far all I keep coming up with is just repetitions of the stuff I've said before. But just to go on a little bit of side thing, you mentioned the mercenaries and the money. It's like, yeah, exactly. As mercenaries are people who get paid about 10 times as much as our military does to do the job, maybe a quarter as well, if they bother to do the job at all. Other than that, I think I'm pretty much done. Do you have any further points you wanted to make?
Yeah. So you were saying about the symbolism of the uniform. So there are very strict guidelines and an oath that every hero, yes, a hero needs to make that they're agreeing to protect America from enemies foreign and abroad. So, for example, God forbid that Barack Obama called U.S. martial law. Every veteran and every current member of the military, and every citizen for that matter, has the responsibility to step up to the plate and say, Mr. President, you cannot declare martial law and say that all Christians need to go into death camps. So the military members are taking a big oath that they have to protect this country not only from people overseas, but people in our own country. And it's a huge responsibility that they have to risk their lives to defend enemies foreign and abroad, whether they invade the country or it's terror from within. They're saying, I'm willing to sign a blank check up and into my life for the U.S. government. I am government property. And it's despicable when the government takes their property and treats it like a pile of trash and second-class citizens. The reason why I say they're heroes is you're elevating that person. I, for one, am not eligible to serve in the U.S. military. My parents also hid everything, documents that they didn't want me to join, but I wasn't eligible anyway. And it's just such a huge, monumental thing to say, I'm willing to risk my life to serve my fellow man and my country with no care, being selfless in fact, that I don't care what happens to me, but I will serve and empower others to make the world a better place. That's a very powerful thing to do. And it's just amazing that people actually do that each and every day when they enlist in the military. They stand up for so much more than just wearing a fancy uniform, that they are willing to risk their lives day in and day out, whether it's removing bombs or removing terrorists. They're willing to sign a blank check up and into their lives for you and for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, but of course, like I said, of late, the civilian side of that equation has been utterly failing them, and we've been using them to really fatten the pockets of oil companies and defense contractors, which is doing these men and women in uniform a great disservice, to put it mildly. But yeah, and of course, you're absolutely right with regards to the martial law thing. I mean, it was kind of funny reading about how shortly after Trump won the election, there were a lot of military officers that started Googling. There was a lot of Google searches for military bases about looking up, just exactly what kind of orders can I disobey, which, I actually found telling, amusing, and mildly worrying that so many soldiers think that they need to have that information at hand. But but yeah, in general, I mean, I think you're making some very fair points. I mean, I don't think you're saying anything necessarily wrong. I just don't reach the same conclusions. It's like, certainly enlisting for those who enlist because they really, really want to, and not because, not to soothe a bruised ego, not looking for an excuse to kill, or not because they're financially desperate. I mean, those who really believe in the ideas, they're certainly brave, and there's certainly, I don't doubt in my mind that any single one of them is capable of doing something heroic if the time comes. Listening to veterans talk, I just happen to agree with them that it's not necessarily right to just call them a hero automatically. And that's really all I've been saying. I mean, I imagine there might have been some concerns that when I came on here, I would just be, screeching anti-military. I'm sure some people thought that, but that's obviously not the direction I went with this. And yeah, I guess that pretty much qualifies as my closing statement.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, the point of this debate is, using the word hero to people who enlist in the military. And back to my point on my other previous comments, just by enlisting, like I said, they are taking an oath to defend the country from enemies foreign and abroad. And that is up and into their entire lives that they have to risk. That at any given moment, the government said, you know what, we're invading China. China pissed us off. We're going to send you to China, and you're 99% sure you're going to die. And they should fully know that they signed up and fully aware that that could very well happen. We could have World War III tomorrow, and they enlisted knowing that they might have to die for their country. That is the epitome of heroism. You're selflessly serving so that the world can be a better place. And they're doing it at great personal risk of themselves. And it's just amazing that people, I don't want to call it crazy, but it's just amazing how willing they are to risk their lives. And to me, that's like so selfless that they're willing to die for us. People say, oh, Jesus died for my sins. There are millions of people who've died, even in the last 100 years, who have died to protect freedoms for all people around the world. And that just, puts a tear to my eye that people are willing to die for me and you just so that we can have a debate online saying why they are or are not heroes. And it's just so amazing that I can't put words to it. And like what I said about my father, he's such a hero to me that he wasn't doing it for the awards or accolades. He was doing it because he was serving his country. And I'm very glad he was able to rip up the letter that he was going to send his mom, because here I am. And he still was able to serve. So I love that, and I love all of our military members.
All absolutely fair. And one thing we can definitely agree on is that the problems with access with the VA is something that definitely needs to be dealt with, and it's kind of embarrassing that it's been a problem for like 5 presidents now. I mean, the good news is that the soldiers that actually get access to the healthcare are very, very happy with the healthcare. I think there is some misunderstanding about that in the debate. It's not the healthcare itself that's the problem. It's the getting the care in the first place that's a problem. And that is definitely the part that needs to be fixed, but that is also a topic for a completely different debate. I'm sure someone, if not me, will start a topic like that on this site soon. So, but yeah, this has definitely been one of the more interesting debates I've done on this site. So, thank you very much for that. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I was ignoring your point about VA healthcare. That, it's a terrible thing that we're treating these heroes with such disrespect. They're serving and dying for our country with severed arms and legs, and we can't give them health care for free. Like, that's just disgusting to me, that they're dying, waiting in line to be served. And, they deserve a lot better for that. All our men and women in uniform, whether it's fire department, police department, EMTs, or military, we need to treat them with respect. And I think by putting them on a pedestal, by calling them heroes, it kind of raises the bar for all of us citizens, regular citizenry, that we need to respect them. That they've done so much for us. They've taken on so much crap, and we need to take care of them. And yeah, I really, this was a fun debate. You know, I think this is my second debate. I just had one before, but it's just kind of sobering to know that there are people right now who are doing night watch, watching over us in case North Korea decides to nuke us. And it's just amazing that people are willing to live and die for us, just so we can be free citizens. And I think just for accepting to take on the hardship of that, let alone dying for everyone, you should be a hero.
All right. Well, looks like and we got this done with plenty of time to spare too. I got more than 4.5 minutes left. You got more than 3.5 minutes left. But I don't think either of us have any more points to make, do we? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and click end then, and well, and I'll as soon as I get back across the street, I'll look and see at the results. Oh, sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, thank you for this debate. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully anyone at home that I know is watching it appreciates this. Any of my military friends. So thank you.
All right. Later.